Before your first breath, before your first step, before you ever cried out into the darkness, you were known, you were seen, you were called. There was a purpose knit into your very being, a thread of destiny woven into your soul. Not by chance, not by accident, but by the divine hand of the one who speaks stars into existence. He formed you with intention, shaped you with care, and set you into this world not as a mistake, but as a living testimony of his plan. In the silence you may feel abandoned. In the shadows you may feel invisible, but it is not so, for the one who watches the sparrow does not lose sight of you. The world may overlook you, the people around you may fail to understand you, and even your own heart may condemn you, but the Most High does not forget what he himself has planted. What he begins, he finishes, and what he calls, he anoints. You are not a name on a list. You are not a statistic. You are not just another life passing through time. You are a chosen vessel. Think of the boy David, a shepherd among sheep, forgotten by his own father, when the prophet came to anoint a king. All the brothers were summoned, but not him. They were taller, stronger, more impressive in the eyes of man, but not in the eyes of God. The oil would not flow for any of them, because the anointing was not for the one who looked the part. It was for the one who was appointed in heaven. And when David stepped into that moment, the prophet saw what God had already declared in secret. This was the one chosen, the one marked, the one destined. So it is with you. You may be overlooked in the eyes of others, but you are not overlooked in the courts of heaven. There are things written about you in the scrolls of eternity. There are promises yet to be fulfilled, assignments yet to be revealed, and battles you are meant to win. And not because of your strength, not because of your wisdom, not because of anything the world deems worthy, but because you were chosen. The enemy of your soul wants you to forget this. He wants to bury your identity beneath the rubble of your past, your failures, your fears. He wants you to believe that because people walked away, so did God. That because doors closed, so did your calling. That because your story took a detour, your destiny was canceled. But none of that is true. The one who called you still walks beside you. The one who named you still speaks over you. And the one who chose you has not changed his mind. The calling of God is not fragile. It does not unravel when life gets hard. It does not expire because of delay. It does not fade with age or disqualify itself because of your weakness. In fact, it is in your weakness that his strength is made perfect. It is in your brokenness that his glory shines brightest. He chose you knowing every flaw. He called you foreseeing every detour. And still he said yes. Look at Moses. A fugitive, a man with blood on his hands, a man who fled his calling for 40 years, and yet the bush still burned for him. God still called his name, not once, twice, Moses, Moses, because the call of heaven echoes through the wilderness. It does not forget. It does not fade. It does not give up on the chosen. You are not forgotten. You are not abandoned. The silence you feel is not evidence of absence. It is often the sacred space where God prepares the chosen, where he teaches you to hear his voice, not through thunder, not through fire, but through the still, small whisper that says, you are mine. And if you belong to him, then your life is not common. Your path is not meaningless. Every step, every stumble, every hidden moment, it is all part of the shaping. The potter does not forget his clay. The shepherd does not forsake his sheep. The king does not abandon his heir. Do you feel like you're in a wilderness? A place where the road has disappeared, where the sun scorches by day and the night brings no comfort? You pray and hear nothing. You search and find nothing. You knock and no door opens. It feels barren, dry, lifeless. But the wilderness is not a punishment. It is not a grave. It is a sacred place, though it does not appear that way. In the wilderness, everything unnecessary is stripped away, and what remains is what cannot be shaken. The wilderness is where God leads those he loves. When Israel was delivered from Egypt, they did not walk straight into the promised land. They were not carried by angels into glory. No, they were led by a cloud and fire into the wilderness. Why? Because the people had been taken out of Egypt, but Egypt had not yet been taken out of the people. The wilderness was the place where old identities were broken and new ones were forged, where slaves were transformed into sons, where a wandering tribe would become a holy nation. The desert was not their end, it was their formation. The breaking is not the end, it's the birth. It may not feel that way. When your heart has shattered, when your strength is spent, when all the things you once held on to have crumbled to dust, it feels like the conclusion of your story. It feels like the curtain has fallen and the lights have gone out. But in the kingdom of God, endings are often beginnings, wearing a different face. The breaking is not a sign of death. It is a sign of transformation. Before something is born, something must break. The seed cannot bring forth life until it is broken. It must fall to the ground, be buried, and crack open in the dark. It doesn't look like growth. It doesn't feel like progress. It looks like loss. It feels like death. But deep within that breaking, something sacred is happening. Roots are taking hold. New life is beginning. The outer shell is falling away because it cannot contain what is about to emerge. So too it is with the soul. There are seasons where everything you've known, everything you've built, everything you've trusted begins to shake, to crack, to fall, and you wonder if anything will remain, but what remains is what was meant to remain. God often uses breaking as a way of preparation. Before he multiplies, he breaks. Before he fills, he empties. Before he resurrects, he allows something to die. Look at the 5 loaves and the 2 fish. The miracle did not come simply because they were offered. The miracle came when Jesus took the bread, gave thanks, and broke it. In the breaking, multiplication began. What fed thousands started with a broken piece of bread. And in your life, the very thing that seems like loss may be the place of your increase. The very wound may become the source of your greatest healing. Consider Jacob. He wrestled with God in the night, desperate, clinging, refusing to let go until he received a blessing. And God touched his hip and dislocated it. Jacob walked away limping. He was marked. He was broken. But he was also changed. He was no longer Jacob the deceiver. He was Israel the prince. The breaking redefined him. It stripped away the old and revealed the true. And from that moment forward, he never walked the same way again. David was anointed to be king, but before he ever wore the crown, he was hunted like an animal. He lived in caves. He wept bitter tears. He cried out in songs of anguish. He was betrayed. He was rejected. He was broken. But it was in the cave, not the palace, where he learned to worship without applause. It was in hiding, not on the throne, where he discovered the heart of God. His psalms were not born in luxury. They were born in pain, and that pain became the oil that anointed generations. Peter swore he would never deny the Lord. He was bold, confident, full of fire. But when the hour came, he stumbled. He denied, he wept. The rooster crowed, and his heart shattered under the weight of regret. But that failure did not disqualify him. It became the doorway to grace. The same man who denied became the one who declared. On the day of Pentecost, it was Peter who stood and preached, and thousands were added to the kingdom. His voice carried power, not because he had never fallen, but because he had been restored. The breaking humbled him, but it also purified him." Unquote. So even Christ himself was broken, his body pierced, his back torn, his hands nailed, he was bruised for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace was upon him, and by his wounds we are healed. It was in the breaking of his body that salvation was birthed. It was in the crushing of Gethsemane that the wine of redemption began to flow. And if the Son of God walked through breaking to bring forth life, then we must not despise the breaking in our own lives. There is something about brokenness that opens the heavens. A broken and contrite heart, the scriptures say, he will not despise. The world runs from brokenness, masks it, hides it, buries it, but heaven draws near to it because God does not see brokenness as disqualification. He sees it as readiness. He sees it as the soil where resurrection begins. What man sees as ruin, God sees as raw material for glory. What man throws away, God redeems. And what man counts out, God calls again. You are part of a greater redemption. Your life is not an isolated thread lost in the tapestry of time. It is woven into a divine design that stretches from eternity past into eternity to come. You may not see the full pattern. You may not understand the why or the how, but heaven does not write random stories. There is purpose in every line of your journey, and that purpose is part of something far beyond you. Every pain, every detour, every victory, and every failure, it all fits into a larger plan of redemption that God has been unfolding since the beginning of time. There is a war for your hope. Every morning you wake up, the battle resumes. It's not always loud. Sometimes it comes in whispers, in weariness, in the dull ache of disappointment. It doesn't announce itself with horns or flashing lights. It creeps in through delay, through silence, through the long stretch of waiting that makes the promise seem like a fading dream. But that is the battleground, the place where hope either withers or deepens. And the command from heaven still stands: do not give up. Do not give up on yourself, because the one who formed you in the secret place is not finished with you yet. Hope is not a feeling. Hope is not wishful thinking. Hope is a weapon. Hope is a declaration. Hope is the anchor of the soul that holds firm when everything around you is shaking. The world will tell you to be realistic, to lower your expectations, to protect yourself from disappointment. But heaven calls you to believe again, to expect again, to lift your eyes when there is nothing visible to lift them for. The hope that comes from God is not grounded in circumstance. It is grounded in his character, in who he is, in what he has spoken, in what he has promised. And he cannot lie. There will be days when you feel like you're standing in a valley of dry bones, surrounded by the remains of what could have been. Dreams that didn't come to pass. Prayers that weren't answered the way you thought they would be. Doors that never opened. You look at the bones and wonder if they could ever live again. That's the moment the Spirit begins to speak. Not through logic, not through human understanding, but through prophecy. He says, speak to the bones. Prophesy to the ruins. Call breath into what has died, because God does not see as man sees. Where we see an ending, he sees a beginning. Where we see decay, he sees potential. The dry bones are not your tomb. They are your testimony. Hope often looks like foolishness to those who have settled into defeat. Noah built an ark before the rain ever came. Abraham believed for a child when his body was as good as dead. Joseph held to his dreams while he sat in a prison forgotten by men. None of them had a roadmap. None of them had confirmation from the world around them, but they had hope. And that hope carried them through the valley, through the fire, through the silence. That kind of hope cannot be faked. It must be fought for. It must be clung to like a lifeline in the storm. It is forged in the midnight hour when all other lights have gone out. When you feel weakest, when your hands are trembling, when your knees are buckling, know this: you are not alone. Heaven sees you. The angels are not silent. The cloud of witnesses is not distant, and the Spirit within you is not passive. He intercedes with groanings too deep for words. He lifts you when you cannot lift yourself. He strengthens your frame when all you can do is stand. Even the smallest act of holding on, even the faintest whisper of "I will not quit," echoes in the courts of heaven as a roar of faith. Hope is not passive. Hope reaches. Hope presses on. Hope refuses to settle. And hope has a memory. It remembers what God has done. It recalls the miracles, the moments, the mercies. David strengthened himself in the Lord, not by ignoring his pain, but by remembering his God. He looked back at the lion, at the bear, at the giant who fell, and he said to his soul, "Why are you cast down?" Hope in God, and so must you. The same God who brought you through before will bring you through again. The same hands that caught you when you fell are still stretched out before you now. This is not the end of your story. It may be a pause. It may be a low place, but it is not the last chapter. The author has not laid down his pen. He is still writing. And when God writes, nothing is wasted. Every